They're doing it again. WWE just took one of the most organically over, genuinely beloved rising stars in the entire company and fed her to a returning legend in the most predictable, lazy, soul-crushing way possible, and I am absolutely furious. MAXXINE DUPRI, who has spent the past year working her ass off to transform from comedy character to legitimate wrestler, who has connected with audiences through pure authenticity and heart, who represents everything good about giving people time to develop and find themselves, threw down a challenge to Becky Lynch on Raw, finally getting her big moment, her chance to prove she belongs in the main event scene. And what did she get for her courage? She got attacked from behind by Becky Lynch in a backstage ambush that made MAXXINE look like a naive fool and Becky look like a cowardly bully, completely contradicting everything both of these characters have stood for. But here's what's going to make your blood absolutely boil: this attack wasn't about building a compelling rivalry or elevating MAXXINE through a big program with an established star. This was about Becky Lynch demanding one more run as she positions herself for potential departure plans, and WWE said, "Sure, we'll sacrifice MAXXINE's momentum to give you a quick program before you leave." When I reveal what Becky actually said in the production meeting about MAXXINE, how the writers fought to protect MAXXINE's character, and which backstage veteran told management this booking would destroy everything they'd built with MAXXINE only to be completely ignored, you'll understand why WWE will never fully commit to creating new stars, because the old guard always protects their spot, even when it means burying the future. Let me break down this absolute character assassination so you understand the full scope of what WWE destroyed. Raw is going along, and we get a backstage segment where MAXXINE DUPRI is being interviewed. She's talking about her journey, about how she came to WWE with no wrestling experience, how everyone doubted her, how she was written off as just the pretty girl for Alpha Academy and then Maximum Male Models. But she worked. She trained. She improved dramatically. She went from someone who could barely run the ropes to someone having genuinely solid matches. She earned the respect of her peers and the audience through sheer determination and visible growth. And then MAXXINE says the words that should be a career-defining moment: "I'm ready for the next level. I'm ready to face the best. Becky Lynch, the man, I'm calling you out. I want you next week on Raw." The crowd watching backstage erupts. This is a huge moment for MAXXINE, challenging one of the biggest stars in WWE history. This is her "I'm here, take me seriously" declaration. The interviewer looks shocked. MAXXINE looks nervous but determined. This is perfect character work, the underdog stepping up, knowing she might be in over her head but refusing to stay in the background anymore. Then we cut to Adam Pears's office. MAXXINE walks in to make the challenge official. Pears looks concerned. "Are you sure about this, MAXXINE? Becky Lynch is a multiple-time world champion. She's one of the most dangerous women on this roster." MAXXINE stands firm. "I didn't come to WWE to play it safe. I want this match." Pears considers, then nods. "Okay. Next week, Raw, MAXXINE DUPRI vs. Becky Lynch." MAXXINE thanks him and leaves, and you can see she's equal parts excited and terrified. This is good storytelling. This is the hero's journey beginning. And then, before MAXXINE can even get down the hallway, Becky Lynch attacks her from behind. Not a confrontation. Not a face-to-face acceptance of the challenge where Becky gets in MAXXINE's face and shows intensity. No, a blindside attack. Becky jumps MAXXINE, throws her into equipment cases, beats her down while MAXXINE can't defend herself, stands over her broken body and cuts a promo about how you don't call out the man without consequences and this business will eat little girls like you alive. Security pulls Becky away. MAXXINE is left lying there, her big moment completely destroyed, looking weak and foolish for challenging someone who just proved she's on a completely different level. That's what WWE did. That's the dramatic turn of events they think is compelling television. And I want to put my fist through a wall. Here's my first question, and I need visceral reactions. Did Becky Lynch attacking MAXXINE from behind make you more excited for their match, or did it make you less interested because you already know MAXXINE is going to get destroyed? Gut reaction in the comments, no sugarcoating. Let's start with what this does to MAXXINE DUPRI, because she's the one who got sacrificed on the altar of veteran star needs to look dominant. MAXXINE has spent the past year building credibility. When she first started wrestling, she was green as grass, awkward in the ring, clearly inexperienced, very much learning on the job. And you know what? The audience could see that, and instead of rejecting her for it, they embraced her because her journey was so authentic. She wasn't presented as an instant star. She was presented as someone trying to become a star, working hard, improving week by week. We watched MAXXINE go from barely competent to actually pretty damn good in the ring. Her matches got better. Her confidence grew. She developed a character that was earnest and determined without being generic. She connected with audiences because she represented the idea that if you work hard enough and refuse to give up, you can achieve things that seemed impossible. She was inspiring, especially to younger fans and women who related to being underestimated and having to prove themselves constantly. And WWE was building her perfectly. They weren't rushing her. They weren't putting her in situations she wasn't ready for. They were letting her develop organically, get better gradually, and earn her way up the card. This was good long-term character building. This was the right way to create a star from scratch. And the payoff was working. MAXXINE was getting more and more over, and it felt like she was approaching the moment where she could step up to the next level. Challenging Becky Lynch should have been that moment. This should have been MAXXINE's "I've arrived" declaration. Even if she loses to Becky, which she probably will, the act of stepping up and challenging a legend should establish her as someone with courage and ambition. The match itself should be competitive enough to show that MAXXINE belongs in that ring. And then MAXXINE either wins, huge upset that makes her a star overnight, or loses but looks so good in defeat that she's elevated anyway, the moral victory that establishes credibility. But WWE ruined all of that in one segment. By having Becky attack MAXXINE from behind before they even have their match, WWE made MAXXINE look foolish. She challenged someone without understanding the danger she was putting herself in. She walked around backstage with no awareness that Becky might retaliate. She got jumped and couldn't defend herself at all. She looked naive, unprepared, and completely out of her depth. All the credibility she'd built over the past year just got flushed away because she looked like a lamb walking into a slaughterhouse. Character damage question: can MAXXINE Dupri recover from being made to look this foolish and weak, or has WWE permanently damaged her credibility with this one segment? Is the bell already rung? Now let's talk about what this does to Becky Lynch's character, because this is equally infuriating from a different angle. Becky Lynch's entire character, her entire appeal, is built on being the man. She's the badass who faces challenges head-on. She's the fighter who never backs down. She's confident enough to beat anyone face-to-face and doesn't need to resort to cowardly tactics. That's what made the man character work. Becky was cool because she had the attitude and the ability to back it up. So having Becky attack MAXXINE from behind completely contradicts that character. The man doesn't blindside people, the man tells you exactly what's coming and then delivers it to your face. The man doesn't need the advantage of surprise against someone less experienced, the man is confident enough in her superiority that she gives you every chance to prepare and beats you anyway. Attacking from behind is heel behavior, but Becky isn't supposed to be a heel here. She's supposed to be the established veteran, but there's nothing in this angle suggesting she's turning bad. She's just being a bully? For no clear character reason? And let's talk about the optics of this. Becky Lynch is a multiple-time world champion, a WrestleMania main eventer, one of the most accomplished women in WWE history. MAXXINE Dupri is someone who started wrestling 2 years ago and is still establishing herself. Becky attacking MAXXINE is like a heavyweight champion beating up a regional amateur. There's no honor in it. There's no accomplishment. It doesn't make Becky look tough or impressive, it makes her look like a bully picking on someone who can't defend themselves. If WWE wanted Becky to look dominant and dangerous, have her accept the challenge face-to-face, get in MAXXINE's face, and warn her about what's coming. Then when they have their match, Becky can be aggressive and dominant in the ring where it actually matters. That makes Becky look like a killer without making MAXXINE look like an idiot. But the backstage beatdown makes both characters worse. MAXXINE looks weak and naive, Becky looks like a cowardly bully. Nobody wins. Character consistency question: based on everything you know about the man Becky Lynch's character, does attacking someone from behind make any sense? Or is this a complete betrayal of who Becky is supposed to be? Now let me tell you what really happened backstage, and this is going to make you absolutely lose your mind. This storyline and specifically the backstage attack were not the original creative plan. According to multiple sources, the writers had a completely different approach mapped out for Becky's return to the women's division. But approximately 10 days ago, Becky Lynch herself pushed for changes to the storyline, specifically requesting that she look dominant in her return program because she's positioning herself for contract negotiations. Becky is reportedly considering her options for when her current deal expires, and she wants to be seen as a top star who's still a major draw and can compete at the highest level. That's understandable from her perspective, she wants leverage in negotiations. But the way to establish that is through wrestling and beating people in actual matches, not through jumping people from behind in backstage segments that make you look like a coward. The creative team reportedly pushed back on the backstage attack idea. Multiple writers argued that it contradicted Becky's character and that it would damage MAXXINE's momentum. One veteran producer, someone who's been with WWE for decades and understands long-term character building, specifically told management that this booking would destroy everything we've built with MAXXINE and make her look like she doesn't belong at this level. That feedback was acknowledged and then completely ignored because Becky's request was given priority. And here's the part that's going to make you furious: in the production meeting where this segment was being planned, Becky reportedly referred to MAXXINE as not ready for the spot and said she needed to learn what this level feels like. The implication being that MAXXINE needed to be taught a lesson about challenging established stars before she's earned that right. This is old school, toxic wrestling mentality where veterans feel threatened by younger talent and try to keep them down instead of helping elevate them. Backstage politics question: if an established star requests booking that helps them but hurts a rising star, whose interests should WWE prioritize? The veteran who's proven or the future star being built? Let's discuss what this reveals about Becky Lynch specifically, because I think there's a pattern here that needs to be called out. Becky has been involved in several programs over the past few years where she's worked with younger or less established talent, and the track record is mixed at best. Sometimes Becky is generous and makes her opponents look good. Her work with Bianca Belair was excellent for building Bianca. But other times, Becky seems more concerned with protecting her own position and making sure she looks dominant even at the expense of whoever she's working with. This is a crucial moment for Becky's legacy. She's at the stage of her career where she should be transitioning into the veteran who helps build the next generation role. She's accomplished everything there is to accomplish. She's a made star. She doesn't need to beat up rising talent to prove her credentials. What she should be doing is using her position and credibility to elevate younger wrestlers, making them look credible by association and giving them rubs that help their careers. But instead, Becky seems to be in protect my spot mode, making sure everyone knows she's still the man and can destroy anyone who challenges her. And look, I get it, wrestling has a hierarchical culture where you have to fight to maintain your position. But there's a difference between staying relevant and burying the next generation. Becky is dangerously close to the latter, and this MAXXINE situation is a perfect example. If Becky were really confident in her status and legacy, she wouldn't need to jump MAXXINE from behind. She'd face the challenge head-on, probably win decisively but make MAXXINE look good in the process, and come out of the program with both women elevated. Becky as the unquestioned veteran ace, MAXXINE as the rising star who proves she belongs. That's how you book this program if you're thinking about what's best for WWE long-term rather than what protects one person's spot short-term. Legacy question: do you think Becky Lynch is in build the future mode or protect my position mode right now? And which mode should she be in given her accomplishments and career stage? Now let's talk about the actual match that's coming next week, because the backstage attack has already predetermined how this is going to go. We all know MAXXINE is going to lose. That was never in question. You don't have someone brand new to wrestling beat Becky Lynch clean, but how MAXXINE loses matters enormously. There's a huge difference between fighting valiantly but coming up short and getting absolutely squashed to prove the veteran is levels above. Before the backstage attack, there was hope that this match could be a showcase for MAXXINE. She gets a decent amount of offense, has some hope spots where it looks like she might pull off the upset, but ultimately Becky's experience is the difference and she wins. That's the competitive loss that establishes credibility model that's been used successfully countless times. MAXXINE loses but looks good in defeat, and the audience leaves thinking, wow, she's really improved, she belongs here. But after the backstage attack, that's all gone. WWE has already established that Becky is on a completely different level. She attacked MAXXINE easily. MAXXINE couldn't defend herself. The power dynamic is set. So now when they have their match, if MAXXINE gets any significant offense or makes it competitive, it's going to feel inconsistent with what we just saw. But if Becky dominates her, then MAXXINE looks exactly as outmatched as the attack suggested, and she gains nothing from this program. WWE has booked themselves into a corner where there's no good outcome. Either the match contradicts the backstage attack by being competitive, which makes MAXXINE look randomly better and Becky look weaker than the attack suggested, or the match confirms that MAXXINE had no business challenging Becky and she just gets destroyed, which buries MAXXINE and makes her look foolish for even trying. There's no scenario where both women come out of this looking better than they went in. Match prediction question: how do you think WWE books the Becky vs MAXXINE match next week? Competitive showing for MAXXINE or total squash? And which would be better for MAXXINE's long-term prospects? Let's examine the broader pattern this represents in WWE's women's division, because this is not an isolated incident. WWE has a terrible track record of building rising women stars only to feed them to established names and programs that don't elevate anyone. They did it with Rhea Ripley early in her main roster run. They did it with Bianca Belair before she finally broke through. They've done it with countless NXT call UPS who were hot in developmental and then immediately cooled off on the main roster by losing to veterans. The problem is systemic. WWE doesn't fully commit to building new stars. They'll push someone for a while, give them some wins, let them build momentum, but the moment a veteran needs a program or wants to get their heat back, that rising star gets sacrificed. It's short-term thinking that prioritizes keeping established names strong over creating the next generation of stars. And it's killing the women's division's depth because they can never fully establish a second tier of credible challengers below the very top. MAXXINE Dupri should be protected right now. She's got organic momentum. The audience genuinely likes her and wants to see her succeed. She represents an aspirational story of hard work paying off. WWE should be carefully building her, giving her wins over other rising talent, slowly moving her up the card until she's ready for a genuine championship program. Instead, they're throwing her at Becky Lynch in a program that's clearly designed to make Becky look good, and MAXXINE is going to be collateral damage. And here's what's most frustrating: WWE will do this to MAXXINE, then in 6 months they'll wonder why they don't have enough credible challengers in the women's division. They'll wonder why audiences don't buy certain women as threats. And the answer will be staring them in the face: you keep feeding your rising stars to your established stars instead of protecting both and creating programs where everyone can be elevated. Systemic question: why do you think WWE consistently struggles to build depth in their women's division? Is it a talent evaluation problem, a booking philosophy problem, or something else? Now let's talk about what should have happened if WWE wanted to do this program right. First, MAXXINE challenges Becky, that part's fine. But instead of Becky attacking from behind, have Becky accept the challenge face to face. Becky can be dismissive, arrogant, underestimating MAXXINE without being a cowardly bully. You want the man? Okay kid, let's see if you can back up that mouth. That establishes Becky as confident and dominant without requiring a blindside attack. Second, in the week leading up to the match, show MAXXINE preparing. Training montages, getting advice from someone like Natalya or another veteran, showing she understands this is the biggest challenge of her career and she's taking it seriously. That makes her look professional and determined rather than naive. Third, the match itself needs to be structured carefully. MAXXINE should get some offense enough to show she belongs in the ring but not so much that it's unbelievable. Becky should be in control most of the match but show flashes of frustration when MAXXINE won't stay down, acknowledging that MAXXINE is tougher than she expected. Becky wins, but it's harder than she anticipated, and she shows respect afterward. Maybe even offers MAXXINE a handshake. That's how you book this program to benefit both women. Becky looks strong because she won, but generous because she made MAXXINE look credible. MAXXINE loses but gains so much credibility from hanging with Becky that she's elevated regardless. Both characters end up better than they started. That's good wrestling booking that thinks beyond just the immediate result. But WWE didn't do any of that. They went with the lazy, old-school approach of veteran destroys young challenger to re-establish dominance without considering how it affects anyone's long-term prospects. It's frustrating because we know WWE can book better than this, we've seen them do it, but they keep falling back on these toxic patterns. Fantasy booking challenge: you book the Becky Lynch vs MAXXINE DUPRI program from challenge to match finish in a way that elevates both women. Show me you understand long-term character building better than WWE's current approach. Let's discuss the specific promo Becky cut during the backstage attack, because the words matter as much as the actions. According to reports, Becky's promo included lines about MAXXINE not being ready for this level, about this business eating little girls alive, and about how you don't call out the man without consequences. Every single one of those lines is problematic for different reasons. Not being ready for this level, this explicitly tells the audience that MAXXINE doesn't belong here. It confirms that she's out of her depth. It justifies Becky beating her down because MAXXINE was foolish to challenge someone above her station. That's exactly the opposite of what you want to communicate if you're trying to build MAXXINE as a credible competitor. This business eats little girls alive. This is patronizing and diminishing. It reduces MAXXINE to a little girl rather than a professional wrestler. Yes, MAXXINE is less experienced than Becky, but calling her a little girl implies she's a child playing dress-up rather than a legitimate competitor. That's disrespectful to MAXXINE's character and to all the work she's put in. You don't call out the man without consequences. This is the only line that sort of works because it's about Becky defending her reputation. But the problem is the consequences were a blindside attack rather than a competitive match. If the consequence was Becky beating MAXXINE in the ring, that line would be perfect. But when the consequence is jumping someone from behind, it makes Becky look like a coward rather than a badass. WWE's promo writing for this segment completely failed both characters. They needed lines that established Becky as confident and dangerous without making MAXXINE look foolish and unprepared. They needed Becky to show some level of respect for MAXXINE's courage in challenging her, even if that respect came with a warning about the beating that's coming. Instead, the promo just buried MAXXINE before the match even happened. Promo writing question: what should Becky have said during this confrontation to make both characters look good? Write your version of the promo in the comments. Now let's address the momentum question that WWE posed as their engagement prompt: who has the momentum going into next week's match, MAXXINE's breakout moment or Becky's veteran dominance? This is a trick question because there's only one possible answer, and it's not the one that helps MAXXINE. Becky has all the momentum. She returned, she made a statement, she physically dominated MAXXINE without breaking a sweat. She proved she's still the top tier while MAXXINE proved she's naive and unprepared. That's what the booking communicated. So going into their match, Becky has 100% of the momentum and MAXXINE has none. That's terrible for creating a competitive feeling match because the audience already knows exactly how it's going to end. Compare this to how momentum should work in a David vs. Goliath program. The underdog, MAXXINE, should have courage momentum. She stepped up, she refused to back down, she's fighting against the odds. The veteran, Becky, should have skill momentum. She's proven, she's experienced, she's accomplished. Those two types of momentum create dramatic tension because they're balanced against each other. Will MAXXINE's heart be enough to overcome Becky's ability? That's an interesting question. But WWE destroyed that dynamic by having Becky attack MAXXINE from behind. Now Becky has courage momentum. She wasn't afraid to attack. Skill momentum, she's the veteran, and physical dominance momentum, she beat MAXXINE down easily. MAXXINE has nothing. She has sympathy maybe, but sympathy without credibility is just pity. Nobody wants to be the wrestler that audiences pity rather than believe in. Momentum question in wrestling: what's more important for an underdog challenger, having the audience's sympathy or having the audience's belief that they could actually win? Can you have one without the other? Let's talk about what this means for Maximum male models and MAXXINE's overall character positioning, because this affects more than just one feud. MAXXINE has been establishing an identity separate from MMM. She's still associated with them, but she's been positioning herself as a serious wrestler rather than just a model who wrestles on the side. This challenge to Becky should have been the culmination of that transition, MAXXINE proving she's not just comedy, she's competition. But by having her get destroyed in this angle, WWE has essentially confirmed that MAXXINE is still just comedy. She's still the plucky underdog who's in over her head when she steps up to face real wrestlers. She's not a credible threat. She's someone who can have cute matches with other developing talent, but when she faces an actual star, she gets exposed and beaten down. That's not the message WWE should be sending if they want MAXXINE to be taken seriously moving forward. And what about her association with MMM? Are they going to be involved in this storyline at all? Are they going to try to help her prepare for Becky? Are they going to be in her corner for the match? Or is WWE going to ignore that entire aspect of her character because it doesn't fit the naive girl challenges veteran narrative they're trying to tell? The way WWE handles these connective tissue details will reveal whether they actually care about MAXXINE as a fully realized character or if she's just a prop in Becky's "I'm still dominant" storyline. Character consistency question: should MAXXINE's MMM teammates be involved in this Becky Lynch storyline, and if so, how? What would make sense for all the characters involved? Here's what makes me absolutely furious about this entire situation: WWE had a perfect opportunity to do something different and interesting with this program, and they chose the most boring, predictable route instead. Imagine if instead of Becky attacking MAXXINE from behind, Becky accepted the challenge but then started training MAXXINE to prepare her for their match. Hear me out: Becky could approach MAXXINE and say, "You've got guts challenging me, but you're not ready. If you really want this match, I'm going to make sure you're actually prepared so when I beat you, you'll know you gave it everything." Then you do a series of vignettes where Becky trains MAXXINE, teaching her, toughening her up. Becky can be tough and demanding, not nice, but she's respecting MAXXINE's determination enough to take her seriously. This serves multiple purposes: it makes Becky look magnanimous and secure rather than threatened. It gives MAXXINE credibility because the man thinks she's worth investing time in. It creates a complex dynamic where they're adversaries but there's mutual respect. And then when they finally have their match, it means something because we've watched MAXXINE grow and improve specifically to face Becky. Becky can still win, but MAXXINE proved herself in the process. That would be interesting. That would be different. That would benefit both characters. But WWE didn't even consider it because they're stuck in the old pattern of heel attacks face to build heat for their match without recognizing that Becky isn't supposed to be a heel and MAXXINE needed protection, not burial. Creative alternative question: besides my training idea, what's another creative way WWE could have built this Becky vs. MAXXINE program that would have been more interesting than what they did? Give me your best pitch. Let's examine the aftermath of this segment and what happens on the next episode of Raw. Presumably, MAXXINE will cut a promo or do an interview where she has to respond to being attacked. What does she say? If she's angry and vows revenge, that's one character direction. If she's intimidated but determined to prove herself anyway, that's another. If she's selling injury and might not be able to compete, that's a third option. Each of these directions has implications for her character and the story. The worst option, which is probably what WWE will do, is having MAXXINE act like the attack wasn't that big a deal, shake it off, and just be ready for the match with no lasting effects or emotional consequences. That makes the attack feel pointless because it didn't actually accomplish anything except filling time. If MAXXINE isn't affected by being brutally assaulted, why should we as the audience care that it happened? The attack should have consequences. MAXXINE should be selling the physical damage. She should be psychologically affected, maybe questioning whether she made a mistake challenging Becky, whether she's really ready for this level, whether she should withdraw from the match. Then she has to make the choice to go through with it anyway, despite her doubts and injuries, because backing down would mean giving up on everything she's worked for. That's character development. That's storytelling. But WWE probably won't do any of that emotional work. They'll just move straight to the match without processing what the attack meant for MAXXINE's character. And that's lazy storytelling that treats moments as disposable rather than as building blocks for ongoing character arcs. Story structure question: if you were writing MAXXINE's response to the backstage attack, what would her emotional journey be between the attack and the match? How do you make this meaningful for her character? Now let's talk about the crowd reaction to all of this, because audience response matters enormously. When MAXXINE challenged Becky, how did the crowd react? Were they excited for MAXXINE getting a big opportunity? Were they skeptical that she's ready? Were they worried Becky would destroy her? The crowd's reaction tells us whether WWE has successfully built MAXXINE as someone audiences believe in or if they positioned her as still being developmental. And when Becky attacked MAXXINE from behind, what was the crowd reaction to that? Did they boo Becky for the cowardly attack? Did they cheer because they like Becky and violence? Did they seem confused about whether Becky is supposed to be heel or face? The crowd's response to that attack is crucial for understanding whether WWE successfully communicated what they were trying to communicate. My concern is that the crowd might have a mixed reaction, some people booing Becky for being cowardly, others cheering her for being badass, and others just confused about what's happening and who they're supposed to support. That confusion is a sign that the storytelling isn't clear, that WWE hasn't properly established character motivations and alignments. And confused audiences don't get invested in storylines because they don't understand what they're watching or who they should be rooting for. WWE needs crystal clear face/heel dynamics for this program to work. MAXXINE is the sympathetic underdog babyface. Becky should be, what? Tweener? Heel? Aggressive face? WWE hasn't clearly defined what Becky's character is in this program, and that ambiguity is going to hurt both performers. Crowd psychology question: if you were in the arena for this segment, who would you be cheering for and why? Does the booking make it clear who the hero and villain are, or is it muddled? Here's the absolute bottom line. Becky Lynch attacking MAXXINE DUPRI backstage on WWE RAW after MAXXINE threw down a challenge is lazy, predictable, character-damaging booking that sacrifices a rising star's momentum to make a veteran look dominant before a potential contract negotiation. It makes MAXXINE look foolish and naive. It makes Becky look like a cowardly bully, which contradicts the man character. It predetermines the outcome of their match and removes any competitive drama. And it represents everything wrong with WWE's approach to building new stars. They'll push someone right up until it's time to actually commit to them, and then they'll sacrifice that person to protect an established name. MAXXINE Dupri has worked her ass off for 2 years to transform from comedy character to legitimate wrestler. She's earned the audience's respect through visible improvement and authentic character work. She deserves a program that treats her as a credible competitor worthy of challenging an established star, even if she ultimately loses. Instead, she got used as a prop to make Becky look good, fed to a returning veteran who needed to re-establish dominance for contract negotiation purposes. Becky Lynch is one of the greatest women's wrestlers in WWE history. Her legacy is secure. She doesn't need to attack rising stars from behind to prove she's still relevant. What she needs to do, what all veterans need to do at this stage of their careers, is use their position to elevate the next generation. Give rubs. Make opponents look credible. Pass the torch gradually while remaining competitive. That's how you build a division with depth and create stars who can carry the company when you're gone. This angle serves neither woman well. It doesn't make MAXXINE a star. It doesn't make Becky look cool or badass. It's just two people doing what they were told because WWE needed content for Raw and figured veteran beats up rising star was easy and familiar. That's not storytelling, that's content generation. And there's a massive difference between the two. So to answer WWE's engagement question, no, neither woman has momentum going into next week's match. Becky looks like a bully, MAXXINE looks like a fool, and we all know exactly how this match is going to end because WWE already showed us the power dynamic. That's not compelling television. That's paint-by-numbers booking that insults the audience's intelligence and wastes the potential of two talented performers who deserve so much better than this lazy, counterproductive angle.